Hi, so let's continue. Okay, so I was talking about the motifs, so let's carry on talking about more of the motifs. And then afterwards, maybe at some point between the motifs, there's still so many left, I might talk about Pantheon and the concepts of divine feminine and divine masculine. Maybe I'll talk about it before finishing all the motifs, or maybe I'll talk about it afterwards. I'll sort of see as I go with this. But yeah, because those are some of the more important and more interesting concepts, I'm sort of thinking at what point should I talk about them. So for now, I'm just going to carry on with the motifs, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I talked about rain previously, so let's go on to the next one. So the next motif is deep blue waters. This is again the concept of motifs is that these are more symbolic. So you think of it in terms of their symbolic meaning and how you might interpret them in the way that you want to see it, in what kind of meaning you might want to perceive it. So I think with deep blue waters, there is, of course, there is the color. There is the color element of it, blue, which is calm. There is that sense of calmness. There is a sense of a sort of I don't know what to. There's a certain softness, I guess you could say, to the color blue in some ways, and with depth, and with this color, and with water being, seeing that it has a nice symbolic meaning to it, and you might think in what way you might want to perceive this, but it's something that has a nice aesthetic to think of it in that way. And like I said, try to imagine it in your head, try to picture it, see in what way you want to see this when you hear deep blue water, or any of the other things that I talk about, whether it's arts or motifs or Pantheon or anything else. Each time I talk about a particular thing, you can imagine it in your head and see in which way you might want to perceive it. Like I said, these can be illustrated in very nice, dazzling ways, but you can also imagine it and see in what way you might want to interpret this using your imagination. So yeah, that was this. So let's get with the next one. The next motif is treasure chest. Kind of an interesting one, kind of a more there's a sort of quality to it that you found something amazing, and there's something new and amazing that is now yours. You can visualize this treasure chest in the sense of maybe imagine a really nice ornate chest with, with great craftsmanship, and designed using great uh, yeah with a lot of good artisan craftsmanship. So you can think of it in think of the colors, think of in what way you might want to perceive this treasure chest, what kind of wood is used in it, what kind of decorations are used on it, in what metals are these decorations. So think of it in different combinations. And as for what's in the treasure chest itself, think of it as it's sort of a gift. It's something new that has come to you. You can think of it as there are maybe precious gems, there are precious metals, there are certain other amazing designs that are made with this. Maybe these are coins, maybe these are bars, maybe there are some very beautiful jewels in it, and you can sort of imagine it in that way. You can also use this, in terms of intuition, how you might want to perceive such a thing in terms of is it with imagining it in the ways that let me breathe for a second here. Okay, so imagining it as though it is maybe a symbol, that what could this be symbolizing, in terms of what in what way you want to perceive it. So it could mean many things, but I think it's a very sort of auspicious, you can think of it in that way, as though it means something nice is coming to you, something very precious to you, something that you hold, something that will yeah, something that is very precious and something that has very beautiful qualities to it, that it is something you treasure. And so you can perceive a treasure in many different ways. You can perceive it in a literal sense as a literal treasure chest. You can perceive it in a different sort of sense, as though what kind of things that do you treasure the most, in what is very precious to you. So there are lots of ways to think about this, and you can of course imagine all the different precious gemstones. Maybe you can think of it in that way. Think of all the colors: rubies, sapphires, all sorts of colors that can be present in these gems, and you can imagine with them in combinations of different precious metals and that sort of thing. So there's lots of possibilities in what ways you might want to imagine this. And so yeah, an interesting motive to think about. Sort of yeah, you can derive many meanings from this. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next one is vial of elixir. Again, a symbolic one, in the sense that this is a liquid that is present in a vial, something that is, like I said, this is elixir, something that really improves, something that is very, uh, it has a very nice effect on the person who has it. And you can imagine in what ways is this good for you. It could be a biological way, it could be in a symbolic way, and it could be in the sense that like there is the concept of sort of, there are all kinds of concepts around liquids and all sorts of interesting mythical qualities that they might possess. So you can sort of think of it in that way. Again, a more symbolic one. I don't know if I want to get too much into this, but you can imagine this. I think the term itself, vial of elixir, what does that mean, and in what way do you might want to perceive it? Okay. So the next one is, let me breathe. The next one is bread of life. Again, this you can sort of perceive it in a sense that bread of life, is this symbolic of nutrition? Is this symbolic? There can be more sort of, you can think sort of magical in ways you might want to interpret this. You can also interpret this in a more literal way, as in this is something that nourishes you. It is something that maybe it is about, you can think of it in the sense that taking good care of yourself and others, in the way that this good nutrition takes good care of yourself and people you love. And so yeah, I think it has to do with being, like I said previously in one of the arcs, I talked about health. So good nutrition is good health, and good health makes you feel good. So yeah, that is something, another motive that you can think of it in that way. Okay, so the next one is meadow, something that is very beautiful, a very nice place to be in a meadow. There is the concept of, there is bliss, there is some calmness, there's also some energy, in the sense that how beautiful and bright it is. So there is a very positive sort of um, environment that is, and you can perceive it in the sense that there is some positivity. Looking When you look at a meadow, you look at all the beautiful things. You look at a beautiful blue sky and green grass, and that brightness, that vivid, all those vivid colors, they make you feel good. You feel the sun on your skin. It feels nice. There's a very nice, mild way in which it feels nice to you, and it's a nice environment of nature in which you feel it makes our bodies feel good to be there. So there's a nice positive sort of environment, sort of meaning in here. Again, many ways to interpret this. So I just thought I would, sort of describe it, but you can imagine it in different ways. Like I said, try to visually see it in the way that it's a nice way to sort of use your imagination and to think about stuff. Okay, so the next one is enormous tree. again, this is sort of symbolic. In what way you might want to perceive this? Maybe an enormous tree shows strength. Maybe it sort of shows wisdom, in the sense that an enormous tree might have been, you can perceive it, yeah, in a sense of wisdom. You might see it as a way of, surviving storms. You can think that an enormous tree, at one point it was a sapling, and then it grew on to become an enormous tree. So you can think of growth and becoming beautiful and becoming great and becoming, and always, and yeah, it's a great symbol of growth in a way that, um, you can, in all the ways that you might grow emotionally, you grow biologically, you become larger, you become, again, there's fitness, in the sense that you become something great. And yeah, and you can grow emotionally, you can grow in a more metaphysical sense. You appreciate things, you appreciate, um, sort of the mystery of life. You can think of it in that sense. So yeah, a nice symbol of growth. Like I said, you can perceive it in different meanings, but I think this is an interesting way to think about it. Why am I breathing? So okay, so the next one is elegant attire. Maybe, okay, in what ways do you, is this, hmm okay, an elegant attire is something that makes, it enhances your beauty, right? A person, uh, it might also be something that just makes you feel good. Maybe you don't, maybe there's some time when you're feeling kind of down, but you feel, you put on a nice, yeah, whatever it is that, um, it's a dress, maybe it's a shirt, maybe it's whatever it is, and you, like, yeah, it's something that makes you feel good, right? You kind of feel at your best. Not that you're not best inside yourself. Of course you are, but it's just something a bit more symbolic that makes you feel good. So I think it's a nice way of thinking about this. And it doesn't even have to be an attire. Maybe it's a certain accessory. Maybe you can think of it in that way. But I generally want to think of it as an entire costume, or an entire attire that you can wear, and you can feel, it just makes you feel at your best. Um, Not that you necessarily need it to feel at your best, but it's just an interesting way of thinking about it. Maybe you're preparing for something. Maybe you want to see. Maybe you're going to see someone, some people, or someone that means something to you, and you feel at your best, and you can form a nice connection. So you can kind of, uh, in a way, you are sort of building a nice moment, right? When you feel at your best, and you put in all the effort to make an amazing moment. So it can, yeah, you can perceive it in that sense. And you, like I said, you can imagine all the fabrics, all the colors, all the types of clothing that it might be. There are so many different things, and yeah, whatever sort of appeals to you. But like I said, I've added the word elegant in the sense that I'm a fan of a nice, elegant way of um, clothing. So you can sort of imagine it that way. What colors and what types appeal to you? Okay, so the next one is music. Now, if I talk a lot about it, music, I think it's a it would be a pretty long topic to talk about. But music is something that speaks to us. It's a nice way of expression. So you can sort of think in what ways um, you might want to think about this. Music is also something that can make us feel good. If you feel down, it can speak to our emotions. It can speak to so many different emotions. Certain, maybe there's brightness and happiness, maybe there's melancholy, maybe there is something else. the music can speak to us in a more direct way, in the sense that it can say certain things that are sort of unspoken. So music has that quality to it. It is a very beautiful way of expression. So you can think of what kind of symbolic meaning it might have to you. Maybe music, there is a celebration in it. Maybe music symbolizes a celebration. Maybe it has something positive that is symbolized by music. So yeah, that was that. Like I said, if I talk about music, it would become there's so many things to say, but in this more symbolic way, this is kind of the things that I had to say about it. Okay, so the next motif is angel. Okay, something very beautiful, someone that takes care of you, someone that really cares about you, someone that you mean something to. An angel, it's someone who saves you. An angel can be, you can think of it in a literal sense, as in uh, a sort of an entirely different entity that is you can think of it in a more supernatural entity sort of way, as in a literal sense. An angel can also be a person that really means something to you. Like I said, someone who really cares about you, someone who you really care about, and someone that can save you emotionally, someone that really holds you close, that you hold close. I think there's a very deep meaning to what it means to be an angel, what it means to have an angel, what it means to be an angel for someone else, what it means to be your own angel when there's no one else. So there are many ways that you can perceive this, but to have an angel is something that is, it's an enormous experience to have an angel. And yeah, you can imagine it. You can, in a visual way that you might want to imagine this, you can think of, in a more, think of a glowing angel with wings, that sort of attire that they would wear. Maybe they have some kind of a crown. They have this immense beauty in them. They have that glow. They wear clothes that often glimmer. They have beautiful colors in them. Think of beautiful whites and blues and reds. You can think of it, all those colors. You can think of in the purples, and yeah, think of colors that have that glow, and you can think of golden sort of decorations in it, and imagine it in many different ways. And they often have some sort of angelic accessories. So you can sort of think of it, you visualize it in that way. Like I said, you can perceive this literally, or you can perceive a very deep symbolic meaning to it, or you can perceive it in both senses at once, in both those ways. And yeah, very interesting motive. Maybe if you want to perceive this in a certain intuitive sense, maybe you can think of it as a person who means something to you, and in, yeah, maybe it means that some there is someone for you, or you are that for someone, and you can think of it in what way you want to perceive that. So a very beautiful motive, a very interesting, and um, yeah, a beautiful motive. Okay, so the next one is fairy. Again, a sort of similar concept. There is a beauty in them. There is a sort of magical quality in them, in the sense that there is, you can perceive that in the sense of positivity, in the sense that there is, you might think that there is something magical about positivity itself, in the way that it raises people, in the way that it builds people up, it makes people feel good, it spreads joy and happiness. So you can sort of think of it in that way. A fairy is a nice way of symbolizing this. So again, you might it's an interesting symbol to think of in that way. So the next motive is architect. An architect is a designer, is a creator, in a sense that you can take things and make something really beautiful with it. You might this is not, you know, and the concept of an architect, it's a vast concept. An architect you can think of in a sense that someone that builds a structure, or a structure that people live in. An architect you can think of someone as a creator. Now this creation can be immense. It's not just in the sense of a building, but in a sense of an entire paradigm. You can think of it in that sense. So an architect, he or she thinks of interesting ways, has visions, and materializes these visions into something beautiful that, in the sense of, you can perceive it in the sense that this creation um, houses people. People feel good. People feel there is a sense of home. An architect can create a home that someone feels. It becomes, they spend so much time, it becomes their home, it becomes a part of their memories. You can think of it in the sense that it almost becomes a sort of a character on its own. An architect's creation it speaks to you, it has a certain meaning. A great piece of architecture, it has something to say, it says something, it has beauty, and it becomes, it can become someone's home, it can become someone's, there are other forms of architecture. So you can think of it in the sense of a creator, in the sense of a leader, in the sense of a visionary, someone that creates something, incredible, has their visions, and makes this vision come to life. So a great symbolic meaning to this, maybe in the sense that you might want to think of it as creating something, saying something bold, and taking and sort of materializing art. You can think of it in that way, in the sense that I think architecture is something that speaks. It is very connected to the way humans are, and it's one of the things that is. It just sort of goes with being human. There's something very noble. It's a very noble art of architecture. So you can think of it in its symbolic meanings, in the sense that you might want to perceive them. So there is the concept of creation. There is the concept of, yeah, becoming a visionary and thinking of. So you can perceive of this motif in that way. You might want to also, in the way that you might want to visualize it. You can, in many ways, you can visualize an architect. You can uh, think of what sort of a persona an architect would have. So, and in what are the things that he or she will say. So again, a very interesting, a very bold motif, and um, lots of potential with it, and in the ways that you might want to perceive it as well. Okay, so so the next motif is going a bit different. The next motif is peacock. A peacock is, it's a beautiful bird. I wanted to include this as a motif because I just think peacock has the way their feathers are and everything else, the way the colors are on them. I think they're very beautiful. It's a nice symbol of nature and beauty, and again, more symbolic. You might sort of more in this sense, I sort of mean it in a more abstract way. So again, a nice symbol, but you might want to think, in what way do you want to perceive this? Because they are very beautiful creatures. So you can think of in what way you want to perceive it.